more on all this, let's bring in White House Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley. Hogan, good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning.
So first, to the president's use of the word lynching in this latest tweet referencing the impeachment process. What is the president saying to the reaction that we've seen so far on both sides of the aisle to that tweet this morning, Hogan?
Well, the president has used many words, all kinds of language, to talk about the way the media has treated him since the moment he came down the golden escalator. Let's not forget the day he was elected, before he was sworn into office, they were already telegraphing what they wanted to do, which is move to impeach him. They have started this from day one, and even before in many instances. And the culmination of that is 93% negative news coverage against this president, fake and false and not even fictitious, sources in so many stories. The president's working for the American people here, and that's what this is about. An unfair, secretive process by the Democrats. If you're pulled over for a traffic ticket, you get more due process than the Democrats are giving to this president.
There is a lot of calls for condemnation of that tweet, Hogan. As you know, some lawmakers have even called for it to be deleted by the president. Some of the most recent reaction coming in from Tim Scott, a Republican, of course, in the Senate. He says the impeachment process is the closest thing to a political death row trial, so I get his absolute rejection of the process. We have sound of it. It just came in. Here's Tim Scott.
Okay.
The impeachment process is the closest thing of a political death row trial, so I get his absolute rejection of the process. I wouldn't use the word lynching.
So he gets the rejection of the process. He wouldn't use the word lynching, says Tim Scott. Cory Booker put out a very certain response to the president's tweet, saying this: lynching is an act of terror used to uphold white supremacy. Try again. The president's obviously getting some of this reaction this morning. Would he consider taking down that tweet or responding to some of the criticism that he's seeing here?
Well, let's talk about what the president has actually done for the African-American community, as opposed to so many who just talk about it. HBCU funding is at historic levels. That's because of what this president decided to do with the funds. This president has also set up opportunity zones in inner cities that have gone to lift all boats, especially those of African Americans, whose wages have now increased at a higher percentage than those across the country. Record unemployment for African Americans, not to mention the fact criminal justice reform was passed under this president, something Barack Obama could never do, something that Democrats talked about forever, but it was a piece of legislation pushed for and passed by Republicans in Congress and signed by a Republican president. This president has done more to lift the lives of all Americans than anybody else. He's not going to take a backseat to anybody, but this relentless attacks from the mainstream media have got to stop. They knew exactly what he was talking about here. He was very clear.
Well, Senator Kamala Harris does not. She tweeted this out. She says lynching is a reprehensible stain on the nation's history, as is this president. Will never erase the pain and trauma of lynching, and to invoke that torture to whitewash your own corruption is disgraceful. If I could finish up on this with you before I move on, Hogan, would the president ever consider that maybe that was a poor choice of words and maybe rephrase his wording on impeachment?
Right, and I've not spoken with him directly about the tweet. I can speak about poor choices, and that's what the media tries to do to him every single day. The president wasn't trying to compare himself to the horrific history in this country at all. What he was trying to point out clearly was that he has been attacked relentlessly by the mainstream media without cause, without evidence, since the day he took over in this office.
Meanwhile, the impeachment process does continue, Hogan, and it seems to be dragging out. What are the risks to both the presidency and, of course, your view as it stands for Democrats as the process does drag on?
Well, the real risk here is for the American people. They're the ones who deserve a USMCA that's ready to go, that Nancy Pelosi won't touch, that would help the American farmer, help the American rancher, American manufacturing. They're not talking about all of the pieces of legislation regarding infrastructure, regarding securing our southern border. They continue to go down into this witch hunt. They lied about corruption. They lied about Kavanaugh. They lied about a cover-up. They lied about whistleblowers. They continue to do this time and time again, and it's the American American people that suffer. They're the ones who are going to have to answer for this. Adam Schiff has been lying from day one, and the fact he actually gets on television still and is treated with any credence or any credibility is shocking to us here at the White House, and should be shocking to most of the American people who now see the Democrats without due process or attacking a president without evidence, doing everything in secret. And as I mentioned before, anyone who got pulled over for a simple traffic violation gets to confront the judge, gets to have a conversation with the police officer who gave them the ticket. This instance is way different. It's all done in secret. We can't question witnesses. We can't have a conversation with those who are in front of the committees. This is just a complete scam. It's a sham, and the Democrats know it, and it's the American people who suffer.
Well, the process does continue on Capitol Hill at this hour, where the acting ambassador to Ukraine is behind closed doors with those committees, Hogan, and we are just now learning that Ambassador Taylor he agreed to go voluntarily, but then he was subpoenaed because the State Department then stepped in to stop his appearance. Did that happen? What can you tell us about it?
I'm not aware of if that happened or not. You'd have to ask the State Department about that. What I am aware of is what you just mentioned, behind closed doors, comma. That's the common phrase that all the reporters have to use when they talk about this.
Did the White House try to stop him from answering questions behind closed doors this morning?
I'm not aware if they have at all. I've not spoken to counsel's office about it. But again, the behind closed doors issue is what's the problem here. And I can't respond to selective leaks from Democrats inside those committees that typically are trying to damage and destroy this president. They're doing it again with this selective leaking. They don't even put up the actual text from our side. In fact, when Sondland made the point, there is no quid pro quo. I saw John Roberts just did it. Thanks for some honest and fair reporting there. But most of the Democrats, most in the mainstream media, only focus on the first part of that and don't talk about the punchline, which we know is that there was no quid pro quo here whatsoever. The president did everything right. He did nothing wrong, and Democrats continue to lie about it.
Meanwhile, the president was on with Sean Hannity last night, and he is now suggesting that AG Bill Barr should look into Hillary Clinton and her involvement in the Steele dossier. Here's that moment from last night.
I heard Clinton was involved. I heard they got somebody who wrote the fake dossier. Was it out of Ukraine? I would like the Attorney General to find out what's going on. In my opinion, that's what it was, is corruption. And if Ukraine would know something about the 2016 election, you have to give that information.
So what is he asking to do here?
Look, I think most of the American people want to understand what happened in 2016, and I'm old enough to remember when Democrats wanted to know what happened in the 2016 election as well. The fact is there was corruption. We know that for a fact. The president wants to get to the bottom of it, and we've got to look in various places for that. You can start that with Hillary Clinton. We now know how the Steele dossier was obtained. We know it was fake, and we know it was fraudulent. We know it was used to get FISA warrants. All of those things stink at the very least. Someone needs to find out how this all happened. Investigating the investigators is something we'd like to see done, and I think the American people deserve.
Only have a short time left here, Hogan. What about this latest back and forth between Tulsi Gabbard and Hillary Clinton? What is the president saying about that this morning?
Well, it's interesting because it seems like any time a Republican runs for office, there are a couple things you can expect us to be called. They're all nasty, they're all negative, and they're all false. In this instance, it seems like anyone who goes after Hillary Clinton or disagrees with her on substantive policy, she goes back to the Russian playbook. How come Tulsi Gabbard is now thought of as a Russian asset? She cannot get over the fact that Donald Trump had the better message. He had a better work ethic and did more promising for the American people and now delivering than Hillary ever thought about doing. Donald Trump won that election fair and square, and Democrats led by the mainstream media and those like Hillary Clinton who just hate the president and want to overturn that 2016 free and fair election cannot continue to use that as an excuse to try and destroy this president and or impeach him.
All right. Hogan Gidley live from the White House this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.